And we're back to this project of the PassManager with Tkinter GUI. So let's get right into it. After the first video we've done about the basic core of the app, and let's go with this logging page. So the logging page is going to be organized just like we've seen before, so let's jump right into it with the define init method. And this init is going to take self, parent, and controller, like we've seen in the video about the layering, right? And then we're going to initiate the parent here. So you could use a super method to grab the abilities from the frame objects. That is your parent, like superclass. I've been using init and I feel more comfortable with it, that's all. So parent and bg is going to be equal to the app color. And this way we're initiating this frame object and calling on the frame abilities. My bad. Okay, label, let's say 1. So our first label is going to be tk.label self. The text is gonna be something in the line of like welcome to PassManager, maybe with some capital letters to make it more official, right? Pretty basic Tkinter stuff. Let's go to the line to make it clear. The font is gonna be controller, and this is one of the interesting parts. Like we've seen before, you're calling thanks to your controller call here. Actually, your sample app that's over there, because remember that when we initiate that page, the controller is defined as self, which is your main frame, the sample app frame, which is a TK object. Okay, this object is gonna pass on its app color title font method, which is here. And so you see that this is self title font equal all those things that we did last time, and here you're using controller to call that self in a way, let's say. Okay, so that's how it works. Now the second label is gonna be the exact same thing, but all we want to do is ask for the logging of the person. Okay, let's add a few details though. So let's say that the background equal app color, I was gonna forget that, and foreground is gonna be white, like that. Okay, let's add this here. Sounds about right. But let's just make the font of anything that's not a title courrier, just like that. Then our third label is just going to be the little label saying that you want to ask for their password to get into the app. So here, password, font is going to be courrier, app color, and white as the foreground. So we're pretty good here. So that's it for the basic labels. Then we're going to go into the entry boxes that are going to be next to those labels. Okay, so the name entry, which is going to be equal to tk.entry, as usual, starting with self. Then the background is going to be white. Then the text variable is going to be result name, let's say. So that's what we're going to get from that. And then the width is going to be 22. I think from my testings that was it. Okay, and then the pass entry is equal to tk.entry of self bg equal white. The text variable is going to be equal to, this time let's say result pass with a width of 22. Okay, so how is this gonna work? You're gonna have an entry box in your logging page frame with the background white, and the text variable that you're gonna enter in that entry box is gonna affect the variable result name, and here it's gonna affect the variable called result pass. How do we create those variables? Well, they're gonna be basic tkinter variables, okay? So it's gonna be result name equal tk.stringvar, and same thing for result pass equal tk.stringvar. Let's go ahead and create another variable, which is going to be new account, and this time it's going to be an int var. Why is that? Because here we have those two entry boxes, but we don't want just entry boxes. We also want a radio button or a checkbox to be able to say if whether or not you are creating a new account or if you just want to log in with your account. So this new account radio, let's call it. I'm not even sure this is a radio button in the end. It's just a checkbox, but that's how I did it. So I'm gonna be consistent with my cheat sheet so that I can come back to that if there's a bug. Okay. BG is gonna be my app color for this radio button, meaning that it's gonna blend in the overall GUI here. Then let's go to the line, and text is gonna be equal to create an account question mark. Variable is gonna be new account, just like we've seen. So here, like, this button is gonna give back a boolean. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that this new account variable is gonna be either 1 or 0 depending on whether or not the button is clicked. And so that's why that's what we're saying with this variable equal new account, meaning the state of the button is going to affect the new account variable. Okay, and then foreground is going to be white. Indicator on is equal to 0. What they are saying is like, is the indicator, is the button pressed or not? And we're starting with the state false, 0, which means the button is not clicked, so the value of new account is, to begin with, false. Select color, it's pretty speaks for itself, I guess. It means what is this alternative color that you want to have once the button is clicked, and we're going to choose the alternative color. How convenient that we have it, right? And then a command, which is gonna be just for our tests, because obviously you just need the variable to be changed, but I want to add a comment to it to see in my control center if the button does something when it's pressed. So it's just a debug thing. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. So result name dot get, and what that's gonna do is that I'm gonna get the name that was entered and see if everything's working fine. So that's just a little bonus thingy that I wanted. Alright, and that's it for the radio button. Now I'm just going to put everything on the grid. So name entry dot grid. So row equal 1, column equal 1. I don't think like that we need to give any details into that. I mean, if you want to learn tkinter, this is not the best video to start with, I guess. Row is going to be equal to 2, column equal to 1, pad y always 5 and pad x 5 too, and the new account radio button. I'm getting tired of this, so let's just copy and paste. We're not lazy, we're efficient, ladies and gentlemen. So row is going to be 3, column 0, and same thing everywhere else. Obviously, all we want is this button to be on the first column, but below everything else. So yeah, this is it for all those buttons. Pretty tedious, but it works, I guess. And now we're going to define our unlock page, and this is quite a chunk of code, so I'm just gonna copy and paste chunks of it so that we don't have to spend too much time on it. Define unlock page, which is the function that is going to literally unlock the page so that you can access the other pages that you want, in that instance the start page. Okay, so what are we going to do here? We're going to define an ID entry, which is going to be the result name dot get. So what you're going to do here is just use the function get, the method get of the object string var. Okay, that's what you're doing. So to be able to use any value that's in that object, you cannot just use the object, you have to use the method get. That's all it is. I struggled with that for a while, and now it's pretty easy to me, I guess. But it took quite some time. Like, I understand pretty fast, but you need to explain it to me for a while. Link dot users list. What does that do? So obviously those two ones, they do the same thing, okay, getting the password and the logging. But here what I'm going to do is call a method from my SQLite objects, my database, and I created this method, which is the users list, which is going to return all the users of my database. And the point of that is just to be able to compare the entry, the ID entry, to the users list, because in the case of you creating a new account, we don't want two accounts with the same name, and so we're just going to filter the things just like that instead of just going into more SQL code. Okay, so here we are, and let's go with the first if statement, and then we're going to go faster with all the else's and the other statements. So here we are. If new account don't get, I didn't bother creating a variable here. So new account dot get is just your boolean value, remember, that we saw up there. Okay, new account boolean that you change with a button. So if it is true, meaning if it's pressed, and if ID entry is not in user list, then you're gonna do something. I just added a little, like, password and entry cannot be empty, obviously. And then just link.add account, taking the ID entry and the password. So we're gonna add a value to the main table, which is your ID and your password. Then we're gonna create a secondary table using your ID entry so that you can start and fill it up with your data. And then we're going to commit, so the save query method from my database here, say, is a commit. The users list, you can see it here. Save query, you can see it's just a commit method. So here we are. And then you're going to call your controller and use its ID property and set it to ID entry. So now what you're doing is that your current session is being associated with that ID entry, which is going to be a way for you to then filter the database and call on the right data from your database, right? So this is what you're doing here, and then obviously you show the frame start page because the person logged in. All right. Those things are followed by the else's statements, which is poorly indented. Okay, so those things you're gonna see later on. What I want to do is create a label to express any kind of wrong identification, right? So this label is going to be underneath all the entry boxes and the check buttons that you might have. But in order to make this label change, what I'm going to do is create the label with a variable, create a label which is empty, and then if any of those things happen that it changes your label, what you're going to do is access your label's properties, update them like that, and in the end refresh your page so that you can showcase this new label. So this is going to be my wrong password label, and we're going to either have here, if one of the boxes are empty, identification couldn't proceed, entry missing, and if one of those is wrong, identification couldn't proceed, this account may already exist. Okay, so this is the first bit. Then we're going to do quite the same thing with my other case, which is the button is not pressed. So if not new account dot get, okay, and then connection equal link dot check table. So what we're going to do with this connection, so link dot check table is here, okay, and remember that we are creating a dictionary and we are selecting everything from the table and associating in that dictionary the account to its password. So in this dictionary, you're going to have as a key the account and as a result the password. Okay, so this is why here we're going to do this. We're going to create a dictionary with that call, and then what we're going to do is go into another if statement just like before, and here I'm going to just put that chunk of code here, again checking out if the entries are okay. We're going to try to check if with an m equal connection ID entry. I just had a few issues with this bit and I just went with a try and accept statement just to make it easier on myself. Okay, again, the goal is not to be super efficient with this. I just wanted to create my first GUI linked to a database. Okay, so then this M object is going to be your connection, your key ID entry entered in connection, meaning that now it's your password, right? Because this is a dictionary statement. So if your password from the database is equal to the password that you entered, this variable here is up there, it is what you entered in the GUI. If this is true, then you're going to set your controller ID to the new entry that you added, and you're going to show the frame start page just like before. And here, like the same labels, like if the login or password are wrong, if the identification failed, and if a field is missing an entry, respectively. I just realized that this else statement is not necessary. Okay, so sorry, I cut a little bit just to reorganize this. Obviously, there was a little issue with this error statement, so I just added an if statement saying that if this is a new account that's created and the ID entry is in user list, then we're gonna say that. It's way easier. We go through 3 different if statements, but at least it's gonna be clean for handling errors. And then we've got this bit about like logging in without creating a new account, obviously. Okay, and now we're gonna create all those things that's been messing up with us recently, like those wrong password label and the validation button that we still haven't coded. So let's get right into it. So here I'm gonna leave the indentation of my define function. I'm gonna get here and just gonna say validation is equal to tk button. Then we're gonna have the text is simply gonna be okay, the command is going to be unlock page, so the function we just defined, right? Without brackets, you're not calling it instantly, you're calling it if you need it. Relief equal raised, which is just like a way to organize your button, like to make it pop out a little bit. And then this is gonna be button font. And then the infamous wrong password label that we've been talking about all this time, which is gonna be tk.label, so self, and then the text, as we said, is gonna be nothing. The foreground is gonna be white. The background is gonna be our app color. As usual, the foreground is going to be here red because it's an error message, I guess, and those need to be super aggressive. And I want it to be a little different from what we usually do, so we're not gonna use our predetermined font. We're gonna use 12 to make it slightly bigger. Okay, and so now this is okay. All of those calls are okay because we are accessing the wrong password labels text attribute, which is here, and we're updating it, right? Okay, so now we're gonna place all those. So validation.grid on the row 3, column 1. First time we're using that, the column span is gonna be 2 because I want it to take some space underneath everything else. Pad y equal to 5 and pad x equal to 5 as well. Wrong password label grid, and this is just gonna be easier to copy paste because I'm getting tired of this. Hey. Nice, and now we have it. This new wrong password label and everything else should sound okay. So now we just need to go ahead and do a little bit of the other pages so that we can first test our app and see if things are basically going on okay. So I guess this is enough for now, and we'll see the next bit in the next video. See you soon, keep on coding.